Lords of the Fallen 2014 is an infamous game among the Souls community for being, well, not great. I wouldn't know because that's not what I'm playing. Today I'm playing Lords of the Fallen 2023, which is an infamous game among the Souls communities for being not great. I guess history repeats itself. But is that really the case? Is this game truly unfun, or are people just complaining? Even among my own challenge-running companions, I am told relentlessly how bad it is, but I had never played it, so I wanted to form my own opinion. Of course, this is the Doomwolf channel, I can't just play the games. So instead, I will be playing Lords of the Fallen while only leveling Strength. You know, the fourth best stat behind Dex, and oh yeah, Dexterity. Real fast before we begin, if you love the content I make here and the dumb jokes and whatnot, don't forget to subscribe. I'm currently in a race against my friend JK Leads to 1 million subscribers, and he says if I win, he will buy a boxing glove, duct tape his controller to it, and do the IRL Fist of Gravity Only challenge in Bloodborne. Thanks, and much love to you all. First thing I had to deal with was the technical issues. OBS does not like Lords of the Fallen, like, at all, but once I got that working, the real thing I had to do was make a character. Since I knew I would be leveling Strength only, my two options were to either pick a class that had a high starting strength to begin with for the initial boost, or pick a class with high stats in other areas to compensate for me not being able to level them up. In the end, I ended up going with Partisan, which has a decent spread in all the stats. After that, I'm able to select a difficulty and some game modifiers. Those modifiers are pretty neat, like Iron Man, pre-upgraded loot, randomized enemies, but I wanted the original experience. Well, okay, not the original experience, that's what all my companions complain about. I was playing this shortly after the 2.0 release, so the enemy density wasn't as insane. As for the difficulty, I went with Legacy, as it says, and I'm quoting here, reflects the game's intended pacing, difficulty, and balance. This will be very important to one of my main criticisms later on, so remember it. Lastly, I gave my character the most fitting name, OBS Sucks, in reference only to the technical errors. Please OBS, I'm sorry, don't shit the bed on me going forward, and I'm off. The game immediately gives me a sword, the Moon's Judgment, but I'm not able to equip it anyway, so thanks for nothing. Despite being a new game to me, the controls were pretty standard, light and heavy attacks, blocking, dodging, the whole Souls-like experience really. I say that, but I did not know how right I actually was. One thing that is different is the ranged combat, and it's actually pretty good, dealing significant damage throughout the whole run, and I absolutely would make use of it. Soon though, I am taught about the thing that makes Lords of the Fallen stand apart, the Umbral, a sort of dark world that is sometimes used for navigation and puzzle solving. Well, I say puzzle, but it's more like, go to the dark world, kill a thing that unlocks something in the light world, finish. It is a pretty neat concept, and there is more to it than just that, but in the tutorial, it's just meant to show you sometimes the path forward is unseen. I'm also quickly taught that there is a rally system to get your health back, you know, like Bloodborne. Interesting. The last important thing about the Umbral is that if I stay in it too long, the inhabitants will begin to hunt me or something. Yeah, like I'm scared of some weak little hollow enemies. Ha! And before long, it was time for the first boss, Holy Bulwark Otto. The fight is grueling. He has some fast moves and heavy slams, and a grab attack. The game tries to teach me that I can block hits, and even that I can parry them, and wait, parry? So, come to find out, the parry is more like Sekiro's, where you hit block just before the attack and you'll build up their posture bar? Wait, okay, hold on. We have Dark Souls Aesthetic, Bloodborne Rally, and Sekiro Parry. Next, you're probably gonna tell me there's some kind of resurrection mechanic too. Yeah, right. After toppling Otto, I find the Iron Wayfarer. He's a cool looking dude just chilling by some fire. Friendly NPC. Good NPC. Know how in every game there's always that one enemy that you struggle with fighting? For me, it's these guys. I don't know what it was about them, but I could just not get their moveset down until like the very end, and that sucks because these guys are everywhere. I get my first couple of levels in strength and officially set out on my adventure. After some more exploring, I find the Iron Wayfarer again, and he gives me an important item, a Vestige Seed. This is basically a portable bonfire. I can only set them on certain flower beds in the Umbral, but they're abundant, so it's fine. The flower beds, not so much the seeds. And now the game finally takes the gloves off. It's time for the first true boss, Pieta, she of blessed renewal. More like she of quickly killing me. Haha, but hee hee ho ho, I'm back, bitches! That's right, there is a resurrection mechanic. If you die in the light world, you will reawaken in the Umbral, ready for a second chance. However, death in the Umbral will send you to the, Shadow Realm. I got decently close for a first try, but in the end, her red-winged angel of death mode was a bit much. Her phase 2 is really intimidating to look at. She summons clones that will lay traps in the arena briefly, but honestly, looking back, it's really just a non-issue. Sure, she's zoning pretty hard, but just don't go over there, you know? I mean, this makes sense. She's the first boss of the game. She can't be too hard, otherwise players would want to quit. It was a close-fought match, but she underestimated the power of crossbows. She's then reborn in her own blood and decides to reverse Assassin's Creed off the bridge? I'm not sure what that's about. After that, I listened to a little bit of backstory and am rewarded with a remembrance. Okay, so we got Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring? Now that I think about it, the way she was walking and holding her sword looked a lot like the Penetrator from Demon Souls as well. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, just to top it all off, there's a hub world. This is Skyrest, your home away from home here in... hold on. Mornstead. Yep, I totally knew that off the top of my head. I didn't look it up or anything. There are several NPCs here as well, or that will come here, that are super helpful. The first is Pieta. Yeah, the same one we just murdered. She's here to upgrade my Sanguinarix, which is the equivalent of the Estus flask. I wasn't exactly sure where to go and was afraid the game would do that thing where it's like, hey, there are two paths. One leads to Happy Gumdrop Land where the enemies hit you with sponges, and the other path leads to Pain Prolapser Mountain. No, we won't tell you which path is which. Go fuck yourself. Fortunately, whether it does or doesn't do that, I ended up in the not so bad place. One thing that this game really likes to do is put enemies behind barrels and stuff to ambush you, and of course in places where you would get pushed off the ledge. I don't know why it likes to do that, but for comparison it does it about as much as Dark Souls 2 does gank fights. Eventually I happened upon another boss, Scourge Sister Dyleth, who enjoys hitting herself with the demonetization button. Cool, thanks for that. She isn't very hard to take down though, which honestly is a common theme in this game. Lots of the bosses were easy first tries and only a couple of them gave me any real sort of trouble. Hey look, it's a casual Mikulash enjoyer. I didn't really think about it while playing, but like, no, this game really just did the we have From Software at home joke. Don't get me wrong, it's not like it's a bad thing, it works really well in the world, I just enjoy seeing the comparisons. If it upsets you that I'm pointing those out, make sure to comment down below about how this game is so much better than anything From Software has ever released. After all, comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Sometimes enemies will be protected by floating blue hearts, and as far as I can tell, there are two variants. One of them just heals the enemy rapidly, the other one makes them completely invincible, which is a fun design decision. I just love having to hit a random floating point in space that moves to actually be able to deal damage to the enemies. It's cool, guys. The worst part is that I died here and that there is a bonfire literally down that hall next to me, but such is the curse of soulslikes, I guess. Then of course, sprinting to the area and then almost dying to him again, only to win. Now that is the Dark Souls way. Oh, a blacksmith. If I shove my flail through these bars, will you like staple some pointy rocks to it, please? Fortunately, the key to her cell was lying in the middle of the room. I think it was dropped by the guard I killed, but on a note of keys, there are a lot of them in this game. Like, a lot, and some of them drop from specific enemies. That alone isn't a problem, but what is a problem is that whenever you pick one up, or anything important actually, it doesn't give you a big fanfare that you did. Several times on my playthrough I picked up a key but was still fighting for my life, so I didn't have time to stop and read the side of the screen to see that I had found the way forward, then just went blissfully unaware that I had the tool to progress until like 30 minutes had passed and I checked my inventory. Maybe it's a personal skill issue, but it would have been nice for big text to pop up or something. Either way, I give the key over, then upgrade my flail twice for ouchies on the enemies. The next boss I happen across is Gentle Gavarus, Mistress of Hounds. A boss that has dogs in the arena. No, that one would be too easy. She's got a bow that can hit pretty hard, but also a dagger on standby, and no one expects a surprise dagger, so I fail on the first attempt. Second try though, she goes down easy. No time to rest however, as there's already a second boss fight. The Congregator of Flesh. Now this thing is cool looking. It's some massive flesh, blood-loving fish thing. I just love the way it looks. At about half health, it starts to spit poison. Because of course it does, but most of its attacks are just hyper-telegraphed jumps. I almost managed to get this one on my first try as well, but I made one too many mistakes and paid for it. One thing I'm not really a fan of is when fights have like hazards such as poison or fire and frost or that kind of thing, because I personally hate using items that I feel like I have a limited quantity of. I mean, sure, if I'm a spellcaster then I just cured the ailment, that's fine, but here I was, big strong barbarian lady, relying on like 4 ointments I found to cure my poison. And it makes me feel like I either have to get good really fast or just deal with dying much quicker. Skill issue? Yes it is, but I couldn't find anything else to talk about with a trash can dog thing that is now dead. More levels in the strength to make me more stronger. After exploring around a bit, I found Resh Messa's sword, but I can't use it. However, I can use the Thorn Crimson Rector sword. I'm not sure if this level just has like no checkpoints or if I missed multiple, but I ended up staying in the Umbral long enough for the eye to get angry with me, but all that does is cause an angry Reaper thing to spawn, and that is kind of a letdown, honestly. I mean, apparently if you kill him, you get a lot of vigor. Vigor is the souls, by the way, but like, that's it. Why not make hordes of the undead come at you, an actual unwinnable situation? After exploring a little bit more, I returned to Skyrest to upgrade my Sunny D. Then it was time time to face the first major boss of the game. I think. See, when I was walking into this very obviously a boss arena, there was a cutscene and a scary looking pillar of light. But I'm going to be completely honest. See, I was streaming this game because it was the first time I played it, and even now, days, weeks, months after playing, I don't remember ever being told to go do something about those light pillars. I mean, you can see them from Skyrest just fine, and I'm sure some NPC or maybe cutscene mentioned them, but I flat out do not remember. So when I got here, I was like, what's that do? Is it important? The answer is yes, it's very important. You need to purify all of them to get one of the endings, but you can also not do that for a different ending, which raises a question. If you don't need to purify them, can you just like go straight to the final boss from the beginning of the game? Surely from a gameplay standpoint, they want you to go fight the bosses at each, then just ignore the pillars like the world's worst moth, but like, technically, if I was going to leave them alone anyway, does it matter? Someone in the comments, please drop that hot Lords of the Fallen lore. The Hushed Saint is a pretty cool boss. He has a standard toe-to-toe phase where he fights you with a spear and shield, but then sometimes jumps up on his horse to ride around, and under the arena. Phase 2, his spear becomes a bigger spear, and his horse can now act independently. It's a neat fight, and he did kill me near the end. Well, first death at least. I was able to come back and pull out the win. So if I'm still trying to rage bait the Dark Souls comparison, this is the first Lord Soul down on my first attempt. Naturally, since I didn't know what I was doing, I went ahead and purified the beacon, and you can tell it's good now because it went from evil Sith red to glowing holy yellow. Before, I had just been wandering around aimlessly, but at least now I have a goal. Those men are floating there. That's only slightly ominous. Here I ran into another enemy I hate fighting, Crossbow Snake Man. At a distance, they are accurate with their dart shooter, and when you get close, they got a lot of moves that let them kinda slither in and out of range. Which, now that I say that, I guess that means the enemy was designed kinda well, but I still hate him though. This bridge definitely has a boss on it, doesn't it? The Ruiner? Oh yeah, well I'm gonna ruin his life. Unfortunately, I forgot how I got there, so the Ruiner had to wait. Honestly, that happened more than once in the run, where I spent so long between checkpoints that when I finally died, I didn't remember all the twists and turns I used to get there. Or I'm just getting older. While fumbling around, I found this man, a boss version of the enemies I am bad at fighting. That's fun. The Crimson Rector Percival. I'm sorry, what did you do to Percival and why is it crimson? He can summon an after image with certain attacks and heal. For why though? In the end, he managed to bring me down. Unsurprising really, but now I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do I go back to this guy who can heal and stuff, or ruin the Ruiner? I figured I would give the Minotaur man another shot. I got a little further in this fight than I did the other one, so that's something, probably. He has a mechanic where he summons a lava totem that does something. I think it buffs him, but to be honest, I kind of ignored it. I mean, it didn't make him invulnerable or anything, and as the old saying goes, if it bleeds, we can kill it. That applies to me as well. This is where I noticed something. Like I mentioned earlier, the game has a deflect mechanic where if you block the moment an enemy attack lands, you don't take damage and you can do some posture damage back. The problem I found is that all enemies have this, like, delay on their attacks. Like, they'll start to wind up the attack, but just before they let it rip, there's an actual half-second slowdown in their animation. For dodging, this is great, it's basically your cue to move, but because the parry window has such tight timing, it causes you to miss if you're playing on reaction, which you would be if it's your first couple of times fighting an enemy. Ultimately though, it simply made me not want to parry anything. Dodging felt so easy when the game literally says, okay, now here comes the attack. Well, regardless, the Ruiner has been ruined. Once again, I found myself wandering through a dark and scary world ages away from any safe haven, but nothing bad has ever come from anyone ignoring all the enemies and sprinting through their territory. It's not like this game also takes inspiration from Dark Souls 2, right? Thankfully, I did find a bonfire. Kinda literally. But before pushing on through the burning town, I was told to head back and make a right turn instead of a left. Or was it a left instead of up? Whatever, I found a boss called the Light Reaper. The fight mimics my love life in that it ended abruptly and within seconds. Well, I know when I'm not wanted, so never mind, I'll play with the Infernal Enchantress instead. This boss has like stacked gimmicks, but weirdly it doesn't feel bad. She has a damaging AoE around her and the blue umbral bubble things that probably have a name. In fact, there are several, but they die in one hit, so it's not really an issue. If you're already in the umbral, you can just hit them, but if you're in the light world, you have to use the lamp. This isn't a lesson that took me the majority of the playthrough to realize. Nope, that didn't happen. Anyway, the actual boss is pretty easy to handle, kinda just like a regular enemy with a health bar, but that would be ridiculous, right? Maybe this is a crazy thing to say, but for some reason, this game, or at least this level in particular, makes me think of like 3D Diablo. Which is funny because I've never actually played the original Diablo or the second one. Soon, TM, but I played a lot of the third one, and I don't know, something about the flayed people and the lighting makes me think burned medieval Diablo world. If you're an OG fan of Diablo, make sure to tell me how insane a statement that is. Oh, mines! That's fun, I'll make sure to watch out for those! Not a word, Jane. I think this wall's trying to... give me a hand. Spurned Progeny. This boss is important because they had a cutscene, but why they are important? I have no idea. At first I was worried, but my attacks did a beefy amount of damage. After a couple of hits to his ankles, he starts to vomit up magma, or is it lava, or maybe some kind of spicy Kool-Aid. Well, whatever it was, I wasn't able to run away fast enough and ended up dying on the stairs. When he stumbled over to the ledge that I was on, I realized this was just an old Iron King, so I guess DS2 is in the mix. Sir, I did not say you could tongue whip me like that. It'll cost you extra. Oh, okay, just got a little bit of Dragon Ball Z in there too with a spirit bomb, that's fine. Jokes aside, I actually did like this boss. I mean, it's a bit gimmicky with the floor is lava and the hide behind the walls for the tactical nuke, but it's not like bad gimmicky. It's a bit closer to a WoW raid boss mechanic than it is a Yorm. Plus, there's enough player interaction with the dodging his hand tongue that I'm sure all the Lady Spurned progenies like. Although, while I was streaming this, someone did say if you climb up on the ledge and just plunge attack the boss over and over, you deal massive damage and can take him out in record time, so there you go, stress for anyone struggling with this fight. The next location I found myself in was some kind of Ash City, like a capital of Ash. No, I'm not going to stop making references to FromSoft titles. Why, you ask? Because I don't have much else to go on. I have to be real honest here, I don't remember much of this game. I liked it, I'll go ahead and say that for anyone interested. It's not a bad game in the state I played it in, but I just don't remember anything. To be fair, the first time I started it was on March 17th, and the time of writing this script is July 29th. That's about a 4-month period, not including how long it took me to actually finish the game. However, despite that little bit of length and maybe the fact that chat distracted me a lot, I couldn't tell you anything about this game, the story, or the characters. Sure, I remember several of the boss fights, but that's about it. The game is fine, good even, beautiful art design, IMO, not too hard, not too easy, decent replayability with the modifiers, but for me, I don't know. That being said, I am looking forward to the second one, so they did something right. Ah, a mimic. I do like these. This game's mimics aren't chests, they are moth monsters in the Umbral that are pretending to be items. You gotta give them the old suck so hard that they die. Jealous. Eventually, I found myself in some mining tunnels. I do appreciate the difference in locales in this game, from temples and poison swamps to cities and caves. It's a good range. I got lost down here in these winding mine shafts, not because it was super confusing, but instead because I took about a month break and Jane put that Gandalf gif on screen. You know the one. Yeah, that's me. With chat's help, I eventually make it to the next boss, Skin Stealer. I wonder what he does in his free time. I ended up dying rather quickly, but I also figured out his weakness. You see, despite having 4 arms, he's still bound by his skeletal structure to not be able to bend them in unnatural ways. In other words, if swing come from left, dodge to left. That's it. Super easy boss. I only say this because honestly, I tend to always dodge in one direction, and for like 99% of the bosses in any game ever, that's enough, but rarely a boss will either have a hitbox big enough that you might still get caught, or follow-up swings that make that dangerous. This boss is the latter. Once defeated, I rode a very long elevator up to Upper Calarath, but if you think this is the next area, you're wrong. Aside from a couple of enemies, there isn't anything to do here right now. Although there is a glitched out fog wall, so that's fun. I mean, no, it's not a glitch, it's the game dropping a not so subtle hint I'll need to come back here. Right, exactly. So I take the elevator back down and find another boss, the Bringer of Stillness, or rather, trio of bosses. That's right, those Reaper enemies are now pulling a 3 Kings boss fight. Fighting these things without lock-on is way harder than with, and I'm not sure why. It's not like they suddenly get any more vulnerable when you're locked on. It is quite satisfying to end death with a riposte. Deeper into the bowels of the planet I go. What horrors await me? Some eldritch monstrosity with tentacles for eyes? Or maybe that one Wendy's on the other side of town with the wooded up planks over the windows? I shudder to think. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's just Howard Dervla, the Pledged Knight. That's fine, totally cool. So this is one of the very few bosses in this game to actually give me trouble, and like, in a good way, not in an annoying way like we'll see later. At the beginning of the fight, it's just a normal encounter, 2 people with big swords going at one another, but after some damage, her little chained friend up there casts buffs, which empower her swings and crossbow bolts. That's all fine, it's more the same but with an added light show mostly. Once defeated, the 2 of them perform the fusion dance and become the Unbroken Promise. No idea what that promise is, but I'm here to, well, break it. Phase 2 does have this cool telepathy nail attack, but those nails are mostly for show. I mean, yeah, they do their thing, but when it's not their turn to attack, they just float around looking neat. This phase has way more health than the first, but honestly it felt like it had more openings too. Like I can fully charge a heavy swing after a lot of its hits, allowing me to bring it down after a couple of tries. This phase. Phase 1 took like half an hour. At this point, I returned to Upper Caloreth, where, surprise, there was a ladder I missed that totally wasn't bait for people to comment. No, seriously, I really did miss it the first time I was here. This ultimately led me to an arena full of dogs and another runer. So, Capper Demon if his arena wasn't the size of a standard Japanese apartment. That was a joke. Capper Demon's arena is a luxury penthouse in Tokyo. Then I found a beacon. Wait, what? Where's the boss? Is there not a boss here? Well, I guess I'll just light the beacon? As I followed the paths that I thought were new, I ended up back in Pieda's arena. I don't know how I got here. I mean, it's cool that it warped back in on itself, but like, how did I get here and how do I progress? Also, at this point, I was recommended to switch weapons to a massive fuck-off hammer. Honestly, pretty fitting considering it was a strength-only playthrough. I wasn't joking a second ago, I had no idea where to go, but chat came in clutch and told me that I had some keys to open up some bell doors. Kinriger Guardian Folard. Chat warned me not to go into the Umbral in this fight, but if you'll notice, he's got one of them invisible orbs protecting him and a dog, so ultimately I went into Umbral against my will. The Umbral has a big scary skull man. That's why I was recommended not to come here. Good advice, really. I was already pretty close to another beacon, but if you'll notice, I'm now in an ice level, and ice levels in video games are notoriously bad. Will this one be an exception? My guess is no. To be fair, it actually wasn't all that bad. I mean, not any worse than any other part of the game, which again had been pretty smooth up to this point. Then I got to the boss. The Hallowed Crow was the hardest boss in this entire game, and it probably took me more attempts than every other boss combined. The way this fight works is that there is a lady floating around the arena. Hitting her damages the boss, but she has her own separate health bar. After she takes a couple hits, she disappears and the big crow will summon a blizzard that envelops most of the arena, then do some kind of icicle attack. There are also a bunch of ads in this arena that can be killed, but there's not really a reason to because once the lady's health bar is depleted, she lets out a shockwave that kills all of those ads. At this point, the crow flings ice everywhere and you just need to avoid it. After a while, the lady respawns and brings more ads. This repeats a total of 3 times, each ad wave having different ads. Personally, I found the second wave to be the hardest because of the, I don't know what they're called, ghost ice ladies. Also, you might have noticed I'm in the Umbral. That's because while you can use your lantern on her in the light world to do some damage, it hurts you and leaves you open to the ads wanting to rip off your face. If you manage to survive the third wave, the crow runs out of go-go juice and leans down, allowing you to use a critical and finish it off. I hated this fight. It was hard, but for all the wrong reasons and a blight on an otherwise okay to good game. With that, I head over and purify another beacon, but then realize it's a coffin, one sealed with chains? Have they all been like that? Am I unleashing some unspeakable evil? Again? Also, Light Reaper shows up to reap my face of light. He succeeds. I went through another locked bell door and found myself in some more caves. This single interaction should tell you all you need to know about this place. The enemies here are many strong. Taking the correct path, I found the Sacred Resonance of Tenacity, and he is a right bellhead. Yeah, I probably deserve that. After a bit of exploring, I end up at a chapel-like place which has more locked doors than any other zone combined. I'm serious, literally every closed door I found was like, you need a key, or does not open from this side. Half of them are like pointless shortcuts anyway. There was a boss on a bridge, and this one I do remember because he seemed really easy. And at first, he was. Then he spat out enough poison to cover the whole arena, and like, how did his tiny lungs do that? All things considered, he actually wasn't all that hard, but the real reason I remember him is because they turned him into a regular enemy, like, immediately. Like, in the very next area. There are like 5 of this guy. The game has this love of turning the less cinematic bosses into regular dudes, and it's honestly kind of annoying. I mean, in the case of something like the tutorial knight, sure, fine, that makes sense, it's just some random knight in the enemy army, but at this point in the game, there's no real reason to do it, and to do it so fast. It's almost insulting, like, hey, remember that boss from 37 seconds ago? Wanna see him again? At any rate, I used an elevator to go up the outside of this tower, now I must go down the inside by breaking my ankles. At the very bottom is Tancred, Master of Castigations. What the hell is a castigation? Ahem. Castigation is a formal noun that refers to the act of severely reprimanding, criticizing, or punishing someone. It typically involves a harsh verbal scolding or a strict disciplinary action intended to correct behavior. Oh, so the boss is going to yell at me to death. Phase 1 is just some slow melee swings, easy enough to dodge, but you can see he has that halo around his head, and at this point I knew that meant magic was in the back pocket. Sure enough, at around 50% health, he decided to call upon the Divine to smite me into oblivion. But what he didn't expect was that I had just bought a new gaming chair. I did learn during his phase transition though that Dead Space 2 is his favorite game. Anyway, at this point he digivolved into Reinhold the Immured and now takes very little damage. I really do love how some of the enemies look, like Mr. Reinhold over here with his 17 kneecaps and 14 nipples. He's just a cool guy. That being said, like pretty much every other boss, he's kind of a pushover. I'm not saying every game that wants to be Souls-like needs to be bust your balls hard. In fact, that is the opposite of what I would want. The Souls games aren't about difficulty, nor are they difficult, and any game emulating them needs to realize that. But these bosses felt so easy. He goes down on the first try, assuming you don't count the umbral switcheroo my character did. Physicists, if you jump in an elevator going up, can you in fact not jump in the elevator that is going up? At the very top, I light another definitely evil-looking pillar thing and turn it into what I assume is good, leaving only one more to do. Weirdly enough, the way to the final skylight was through a side door that was just before the bridge coming to this tower. It felt so weird. Like every other path more or less has a billboard neon sign saying, "Go here," but this is the equivalent of putting the entrance to the Duke's archives at the Great Hollow Invisible Wall. That being said, I do love the crimson leaves and the stone thing going on. At the top, I must fight Abbess Ursula to continue, and I found out that her favorite things to do are shoot beams of light and throw wine on me. This section had one of the worst, well, sections of the whole game. You basically have to take cover while slowly advancing, and a laser light show is aimed at your face. I would hate to see what this looks like with the original amount of enemy spam. A giant glowing hand thing on an altar surrounded by blood. What could possibly go wrong? Picking up that thing caused Rapturous Huntress Irene to spawn, and yes, before you ask, she also gets turned into a normal enemy later. Phase 1 is just a regular fight, no special tricks, but aha, Phase 2, she gets some of that there golden thorn magic and can even wall off sections of the arena. It's a neat trick, but she is yet to learn the truth of Souls games. Big Hammer always wins. You know what, I take it back. This area is the worst area in the whole game. The combination of the wine-drinking homeowner association PTA bitch and that Madame Lancelot just sucks. However, it is forgiven, for the next boss is the best boss in the whole game. This is Judge Cleric, the Radiant Sentinel, and I love this fight. Honestly, I'm not completely sure why, it just felt the most involved and fun. I guess because she's got these cool area denial attacks where she calls down a hailstorm of golden arrows or carpets the zone with golden grass. And then in Phase 2, she's no longer holy but tainted. Maybe, she's now a fire enemy. Same melee attacks, but now there's fire. I don't know, I just like the fight a whole lot. She isn't hard by any means, but the fight felt so fun and involved, and the great music helped out. Unfortunately, this boss is the final high fight of my run. I only remember 2 bosses after this, and neither of which did anything for me. Either way, the last pillar is sealed or opened or whatever, and I can move on to the final area of the game. To get there, I have to go through Upper Caloreth, but the door is suddenly locked. Fortunately, I can go the long way around. This ultimately brings me to the true fight with the Light Reaper. He ran away every other time I saw him, but not this time. No, this time, we fight. He is not one of the 2 I remembered, but to be honest, he's kinda mid. He's got cool moves, and anything that rides a dragon gets bonus points, but overall, I was kinda disappointed. He showed up to ruin my day like twice, but it only took me like 5 tries to clap him. I will admit I got kinda lucky. He had like huge combos and stuff near the end of his life bar, but I just outplayed him. Also, chat told me there's a small chance for him to show up at the beginning of the game instead of the tutorial boss, which is hilarious. At any rate, I returned to that glitchy fog wall, and oh look, it's now a proper fight with the Iron Wayfarer. At the time, I had no idea who this was because there was such a long gap between recordings, and admittedly, I ignored the people in Firelink, but this is one of, or maybe the first NPCs you meet. And apparently also the protagonist of the 2014 Lords of the Fallen? I'm not gonna double check that information. If I'm wrong, just yell at me in the comments because, you know, comments are good for the blah blah blah, you get the joke. This fight isn't terribly hard, though the cramped spaces didn't really do it any favors. I'm notoriously bad at NPC fights, but I was able to scrape through on my first attempt. Once it was over, I can interact with a wall to reveal a totally not evil door and continue my adventure. I forgot to mention that anything remotely human-shaped is trivialized by my hammer. I can just pancake them, then back up and do it again, repeat until they are lightly tenderized. Fun fact, this room looks like a dead end. It is in fact not a dead end. The way forward is on a little side path that I totally missed the first time I was here, and no one in chat said anything. Honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Of course the final level is a castle half submerged in lava. That's just video game design 101 right there. I joke, this level is pretty cool. Well, no, it's hot. You know what I mean. This was somehow the hardest, but also not hardest level. I mean, the enemies are all tough and stuff, and I died a lot, but I don't ever recall thinking it was like bad or unfair, which is great on the game's part. Well-designed enemy placements. Yep, this game has that. That's not a joke, I really feel that way, but honestly, there's not a lot left to talk about, so let's just get to the 2 fights that I actually did remember. First, the Sundered Monarch. He's a chill guy. I thought I could, like, not fight him, maybe just kind of hang out with him or something, but unfortunately the game demands blood. Well, I say unfortunately, I don't actually know this man, he could be the world's worst dictator. What I do know is that he has a lot of health, and it kinda sucks. The first phase, if you could call it that, is pretty uneventful. He has like 2 attacks, but that ends after he's lost like 5 to 10% of his health, then he gets angry. One of my least favorite attacks in the whole game is actually this charge. It's not hard to dodge once you know it's coming, but the timing does feel a bit wonky, and the first time you see it, it's about as instant as Osiris' charge in Dark Souls 3. At about half health, he gains the power of the sun, and now he can explode and shoot fire swords from the sky. I found this phase really cool and the attack's fun to dodge. The problem is just his massively bloated health bar. In hindsight, if his health bar was smaller, then I couldn't enjoy the fight really, but maybe it was just a bit too much. Oh well, after like half an hour, he goes down. Finally, I ascend some big scary steps to definitely not the devil, and I'm spoken to by Adir the Bereft Exile. I believe this is where you would make a choice on what ending you would do, but as I didn't know there were multiple endings or how to achieve them, you know, first playthrough and all, I only had one option, to enter the Rogar realm. Well, technically I could also do nothing, but that doesn't do, it literally does nothing. It do not proceed, do not pass go, do not collect 200 evil dollars. It's kind of funny too, because despite only having one option, Adir still says that he will offer me a choice. Well, whatever, I enter the realm. Oh, you're a big boy, aren't ya? Well, you know what they say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Before the fight starts, he does this buff thing. Don't touch it, it's a bad idea. Anyway, this is Eidolon of Adir, and he's alright. I mean, I've got no real complaint about him. His moveset's pretty fun to dodge, and when he's almost dead, he heals to full, but since he doesn't have a crap ton of health, that's not a big problem, just a phase 2 where the boss gets a second wind. Apparently, originally, this fight was a nothing burger. It was like the deacons from Dark Souls 3, and that's not me throwing shade at the worst Dark Souls game, that's how chat described the fight, which would probably explain all the half-naked men around the arena. I don't really have anything to say about the actual fight, so instead I'm just going to reiterate, this was a fun game. I know a lot of people out there said it was rough on launch, and from what I heard I can believe that, but playing it now, it's pretty good. It's clear the devs listened to the player base and just wanted to make a good game, so they made changes, and one of those is a new game modifier which will return the enemy density to its original amount. Meaning, they knew some people liked that version and didn't want to take it away from them while still opening the door for new players. And that is good game design. I'm excited to see what Lords of the Fallen 2 is like. At the end, I use my lamp to cleanse Adir, and some other god decides to swoop in and nuke the whole world with light. Was I the baddie the whole time?
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this week's video. This was a interesting one. I mean, it was fun. I like this game. I just heard so many like negative things about it that I went in kind of, unfortunately, what's what I'm looking for? Biased? Is that the right word? I don't know, my English is slipping at this point. But like I went in without giving it a fair shot. But then I was like, hey, it's not actually that bad. No, I have no desire to see what the enemy spam was like before the update. Even though that's an option, I think it hit a really good middle ground. Like there were a couple places that were a tiny bit much, but literally like 3 places. But most of the game felt actually really well balanced, and so I have no desire to go see what that was like. But it was fun, so if you've ever been on the fence about picking it up, I recommend it. Also, this week's Grand Champion, Unreproachable Name, congratulations.